Let me take just a few minutes, I hope, to thank you for providing me the opportunity to be here. I appreciate the work of the search committee and the university community in defining what you're looking for in the president and ultimately giving me the opportunity to be here. And I want to share with you, and I mean this most sincerely, that I'm extremely honored to be here for a couple of reasons. First, it's an honor to even be considered as the successor to Bob Carothers. And I just want to say to you that my hope would be to bring the same kind of moral courage and vision and passion for students that I think that has exemplified his work as president on behalf of the University of Rhode Island for the last 18 years. That's the kind of attitudes, beliefs that I would like to bring here if I can. Secondly, it's a great honor to be considered for this position because of the nature of a university like the University of Rhode Island. And I want to reflect just briefly with you on that a little bit because it means a lot to me, and I think it'll give you some insight into why I chose the career path that I did that led me here today. And an important part of my career path was the decision I made 16 years ago to leave a wonderful institution and a great position as a member of the faculty of Amherst College that enabled me to do two of my great passions in life, teach undergraduates on the one hand and pursue research in biochemistry and chemistry on the other. But I left that institution and I moved to Montana State. And I want to reflect on a little bit what it was about Montana State and what it was about URI that led me to make that kind of decision. These are bad times, let's face it. These are bad times for public higher education. But I don't think that we should be at all discouraged by the times we face. If we remember how institutions like ours came into being. In July of 1862, James Morrill of Vermont introduced a bill that was signed into law by Abraham Lincoln that created the American land-grant university. It's important for us to remember that that bill was introduced and became law 3 months after the Battle of Shiloh was fought, where 25,000 Americans on both sides were killed, maimed, or injured. A time when the nation realized for the first time, really, that the Civil War would not be easy, it would not be over quickly, and that it would ultimately be devastating to many of the people who lived in the country. Yet at that very time in our history, certainly one of the darkest hours we ever faced as a country, the Congress of the United States and the presidents of the United States had the vision to implement one of the great ideas that I think that humanity's ever conceived. And that is the modern American public land-grant university. Dedicated as it is to education of the common people, and I don't mean that in any disparaging way, for the common good. That was the vision that created the University of Rhode Island. That was the vision that created Montana State University. And it's a vision that I'm still passionate about. And it was the vision that attracted me from Amherst College to Montana State University. And it's a vision that we have to remind our country about every so often, when it forgets why public land-grant universities were created and the indispensable role that they have played in creating America that we know and love today. And that's why it's such an honor to be considered for the presidency of the university like this. And I want to thank you for giving me that honor. Let me reflect a little bit on how we translated that vision of 1862 forward. At that time, about 75%, maybe more, depending on exactly how you want to count, of Americans earn their living primarily or secondarily in agriculture. And that's why we see the prominence of agriculture in so many of our land-grant institutions, especially those in the Midwest and the West. Today, fewer than 2% of Americans earn their living primarily or secondarily through agriculture. We have to reimagine the land-grant mission, but never need to get away from its common foundational principle of education for the common people, for the common good. And that means we have to think very seriously about whatever you do, about access and affordability. But we also need to think, I think we have to be focused on this entirely, that our job now as modern land-grants is to educate students for careers that do not exist, based on knowledge that has not been discovered or technologies that have not been developed. That's our job. We need to prepare students for that kind of world. That's a very different world from the 1880s, when this institution was founded, and for the first 50 years of the land-grant mission. The pace of change was not so rapid as it is today. How do we do that? I think an essential element in our success is precisely one of the things which you've identified as a major focus for your future. And that is to become an increasingly concentrated, research-intensive university. Why do I believe that that's important? Because if we're going to prepare students for careers that don't exist, based on technologies that haven't been invented, and knowledge that hasn't been discovered, we're not going to do that solely in the classroom. We're going to do that by engaging students in the very processes that create new knowledge and lead to new technologies, and lead them to prepare for engagement with those, and prepare them to work in fields that at the time that they receive their diploma haven't been conceived of yet, but for which they will find their ultimate fulfillment as students. And that's why I think the research mission is so critical, because that's the creative cutting edge of the modern American land-grant university, is the research function, the creative function of its faculty. And it doesn't matter about discipline. I'm speaking about all disciplines, whether it's English or oceanography, whether it's philosophy or art or chemistry and biochemistry. I think it's important in all of those disciplines that students have the opportunity to be creatively engaged, to be scholars, to be part of a community of discovery that's based on pushing the knowledges that are important for us forward. And I don't think that's at all incompatible. In fact, I think it's indispensable with high-quality undergraduate education. Because high-quality undergraduate education has to be about far more than what happens in the classroom. That's the essential foundation. And our goal as a public land-grant research university should be to put the best possible people in those classrooms, whether they're at the front or in the middle, over the web or a podcast. Our responsibility is to put the best minds we have and can attract to the University of Rhode Island in contact with those students. But it has to be about far more than that, too. And that's, I think, what's exemplified in our mission as a research-intensive university. Finally, I want to just conclude with one remark about what I think is the indispensable strategy to success at doing that. And to do that, I want to go back, I shared with the students a few minutes ago, to a very ancient Greek and Roman concept. It's inherent in the phrase body politic, that the community is like a body. Now, famously, Paul, when he wrote in the New Testament, took that metaphor and applied it to church. That's where I first encountered it. But it's a metaphor that has a much richer, deeper meaning than just that, and a more ancient meaning than that. And that's the way in which I want to use it for the University of Rhode Island, is we need to be a community that's a body. We don't all have the same function. We don't all need to do the same things to make the body successful and healthy. But we have to respect all of our roles. And we have to be able to define what those roles are. And we have to be comfortable in those roles. And we have to be comfortable with the fact that other people may have a role different than us. And we have to, most of all, care about each other as a community and realize that our success as a community is dependent upon us thinking ourselves to some degree as a body of parts of one whole. And I think that is an essential element for success. And that the final comment I want to make is about presidential leadership. I would have to say, if I come here as a president, I am not primarily interested in my success. I'm interested in your success. The role of the president is to enable the campus, the students, the faculty, and the staff to be successful. And if you're successful, then the university is. And my role as president would be to help you